and then to just say a couple of words about why I think this is going to be an extremely close race that Labour can and will win. Okay. So the why will be familiar to many of you. If you've been hanging around the Labour Party for a while, it won't be a stranger because it's back to old-fashioned Labour Party values. And they are founded on some very deep and stable and firm principles that everybody, no matter where they come from, no matter their race, colour, creed or religion, and definitely no matter the size of their or their parents' wallets, are all worth the same, and are therefore equally deserving of a life of opportunity and dignity, and that the role of a good government working in partnership with the community and the business sector is to ensure those opportunities are there, that each of our kids can grow up to make the best of their lives. And it doesn't matter whether you are the son of a driver or the daughter of a doctor, you can aspire to be the best that you can be. It's a very old idea, it's a very Labour idea, it's exactly what we stand for. We call it putting people first, people matter most. That's what we're about. Right, how do we do that? Well, it's easy to say, hard to do in the real world. First thing, people need jobs. And so growing the economy to provide good jobs and making sure that they pay decent wages and we have fair working conditions, that goes to the heart of the Labour project, always has, always will under my leadership. That is decent, well-paid jobs. So we've got an economic upgrade plan that in a region like this is obvious to see. You take our fine natural produce, you add the smarts from places like Massey University and Food HQ where we were today, and then you end up with more valuable branded products. And if I contrast what we saw today at Massey with what we heard about yesterday in the news, which was that our trade in sending felled trees to Asia for milling, the price has dropped out of that market 48% in the last few months. If you think that's bad, the price has dropped out of the international dairy market by 41% since February. And now Federated Farmers tells us that 1 in 5 dairy farms could be up against the financial wall. So that rockstar recovery didn't last too long. And as I said at our campaign opening last weekend, the party was short. Not everybody got invited, but you can be sure the hangover is going to be spread around. Yeah? So, jobs count. And we've got to grow the pie, we've got to add value, and then we've got to make sure that it is fairly shared. That is why we will be raising the minimum wage, $2 an hour to $16.25 in our first 100 days. Let's hear it on. And we'll be changing the wage bargaining system, as we explained to the workers at Stevenson's Structural Engineering in Tokomaru this morning. If National get back, they've pledged to take away smoko and lunch break. That's how petty they're getting, folks. Taking away smoko and lunch break, don't let them do that. There's one way to stop it, it's called a Labour Party vote. Believe it or not, generations past fought for the 40-hour week. I think we might keep it, shall we? Yeah. All right, well look, jobs, wages, they're the starting point. You've got to have somewhere to live. And we know that there is a housing crisis in New Zealand. You live in Auckland or Christchurch, your rent will have gone up between 20 and 25% on average in the last year. Absolutely crazy. In Auckland, the prices have gone up about 14% in the last year for home ownership. And the level of home ownership is now below 50%, and it is at its lowest level in 50 years. Lowest level in 50 years. And in fact, the number of Māori and Pacific people in New Zealand that own their own homes has been cut by almost a half in the last decade. That's amazing, isn't it? And tragic. Because when people own their own home and have a slice of the Kiwi dream, then of course they can invest their pride in it, make it nice, and they have the security of knowing that their children will grow up in that neighbourhood. They can make friends, they get used to the school down the road, and they don't get shunted around. So housing's crucial. We've got Kiwi Build that'll be building 100,000 new homes over 10 years, the biggest home building program since Mickey Savage was Prime Minister. And while we're at it, it won't surprise you to hear us say that we think Kiwi homes should be for Kiwi families. not foreign speculators. They won't be trading Kiwi real estate, and they won't be buying New Zealand farms, because we will not allow farmland to be sold to foreigners unless there is an overriding economic reason why it's in the national interest to do so. So Lochinvar will stay in New Zealand hands, and so will a whole lot of others. Of the 1 million hectares of farmland that has been approved for overseas sale since John Key became Prime Minister. Can you believe that? 16 times the size of Lake Taupo. It's going to stop. Okay, families. We've made some major announcements in the last wee while. We put out our Best Start package at the start of the year. That's 6 months paid parental leave, more early childhood hours, and bringing back the family benefit. We call it the Best Start payment, $60 a week per child, and the combination of that and the higher minimum wage will be to lift the best part of 200,000 New Zealand children out of poverty. Now, if I can't think of a more important reason for you to cast your vote for Labour than to lift a couple of 100,000 kids. That's about what, 4 times the population of Palmerston North above the poverty line. That is essential. That is essential. We know kids don't leave their lives at the school gate. I'm getting the look from you local MP to hurry up, so I will. But I'm going to mention the education policies. Once they're fed and clothed and they come to school, guess what? Year 5 onwards, everybody gets a digital device, because we know kids love technology and that's how they learn the best, and it shouldn't just be the preserve of the wealthy to have access to a computer. So we'll make it easy for every kid to get access to a digital device and a 21st century learning environment and a smaller class size with more teachers. So that's all good stuff. And in the weekend we announced most of, not all of, our health policy. And I'm very pleased to tell you that under a Labour-led government we won't have hospitals just as ambulances at the bottom of the cliff. Right? Good as they are, dedicated as our doctors and nurses are, they tell us, and we agree, that actually keeping people well and intervening quickly when people get sick is the best thing that we can do. And that is why under a Labour-led government, 4 out of every 10 New Zealanders are going to be having free access to GPs and free prescriptions. What do you think about that? So if you are an expectant mother, you get free GP access, free medicine, and free dental care, because dental care is essential to the health of babies. If you are a young person under 13, it's free doctor's visits. 13 to 18, it's free or low-cost access to health one-stop shops. If you are a chronic care sufferer, then you will get your 4 free doctor's visits a year plus free prescriptions under Care Plus, and the criteria will be eased. And if you're over 65, you get a lot. You get free doctor's visits and you get free prescriptions. It's probably the biggest single advance for primary health care for decades, if not a generation. So we're very proud to be able to do that. And here's the good bit to sum up. It's all banked and paid for. We are going to be running fiscal surpluses every year, and we pay off National's record debt within our first 2 terms to 0. Thank you, David Parker. We have a wonderful finance spokesperson. The numbers add up. Isn't that great? Yeah. Okay, that's the why, that's the what. What about the how? The how's up to you. We reckon this is going to be a cliffhanger election. We are going to be able to get our vote up into the win zone, but it's going to come down to the number of volunteers that we have on election week, or 2 weeks, because voting starts on the 3rd and goes to the 20th, but you didn't know that. So we've got 17 days to vote, and we need hundreds of volunteers to turn out the vote. We know very well where our people live, and we need to knock on their doors and make sure that they have voted. If we do that well, up and down the country, that's worth 2 to 3%, and that will decide the election. So we need the help of everybody who wants a fresh start for New Zealand, who can give even an hour on election day. Every little bit of work that you can do makes a difference. So see these 3 wonderful people, be part of the change, be part of starting a better New Zealand, be part of putting people first, and making this the kind of place that our kids will be proud to call home. Thanks very much.
Can we get little lights, the house lights? Thanks. So Mark and Pity are going to come around with microphones so that you all can ask your questions and we can hear you. I suppose one way of doing it is making it dark right here. It's another way of doing things. Okay, so if you've got a question, hand right up in the air so I can see you. Goodness me, there's questions everywhere. There's a gentleman right in the middle here. Mark, if you come up, up, and across. There you go. Bingo.
Right, this is to David. What I want to find out is, like I told you last time about the Constitution Act 1986, when you guys can actually start informing the public, okay, that we have the right to become sovereign, because with the sovereign's account there's actually trillions of dollars sitting there that can be used for New Zealand, which can pull us out of poverty and everything, but no government is advising us.
Thanks very much, mate. In fact, I remember your question so well from last time that I pretty much memorised it, so thanks for that. The answer is, under a Labour government, New Zealand will be sovereign, and we won't be signing away our sovereignty under the Trans-Pacific Partnership or anything else. No, we've had the speech, Mark. So.
But when you're going to tell us that we can become sovereign,
yeah,
which isn't. None of us.
So
is anyone here that's actually sovereign? Can you ask that question? Anyone here that is sovereign? Can they please put their hand up?